Hey guys, Marcus Melnick here with Firearm Mentor. Hope you're enjoying my YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. These little things are free to you and really help the channel. I appreciate your support. Enjoy. Thank you.
The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters. Greetings and welcome to the Personal Safety Show. This is Marcus Melnick from Firearm Mentor and Stress to Logic, your host. And today we're going to be talking about all of the things that are happening in the firearms business and safety businesses. But before I do, I just want to let everyone know that my second business, which is Stress to Logic, that website is stress, STRESS, the number 2, logic, LOGIC.com, is the part of my business where I go to conferences and companies and provide a variety of safety training. I set up this second DBA because I was trying to solicit to go to conferences with my Firearm Mentor email address. And quite frankly, 40% of the world doesn't like firearms, at least in the United States. So I was getting some resistance because I don't want to do business with a gun guy. And I've come across that a number of times in a number of different scenarios. So what I did was I created a new website called Stress to Logic. And the keynote that I love to deliver is overcoming the human stress response. But in the past couple weeks, I've had several speaking engagements. For the North Shore Senior Center, I did a speaking engagement on street smarts for older Americans, which certainly included a discussion on active shooters. I didn't know this when I booked the event, but it's actually going to be airing on Glenview local TV. It was recorded and it's going to run for about a week sometime in November. I'm not exactly sure when, but I did get a copy of it. So it looks great. I was very happy with it. Also, previously on the show, I've had NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, specifically people in the Lake County chapter. I interviewed a couple people who really help those with mental illness. And they had a state conference where I trained roughly 32 people, because I counted, in the room who either have family members with mental illness, have mental illness themselves, or are service providers, social workers, nursing, home health. And that topic was how to manage agitated people, which it can go across all sorts of businesses and interactions, because when someone's agitated, it really doesn't matter whether they have a cognitive issue, mental illness, a physical issue, a medical issue. Agitated is agitated. That went very well. And finally, next week, I'm going to be working with an organization who cares for adults with special needs, high functioning. These people have jobs and lives and interact with the public in a non-special needs way. And that's going to be, the topic is going to be street smarts for adults with special needs. So if you have any type of engagement, we can certainly talk rates. I'm typically able to work within any budget, and I would love to have a conversation with you, or I'd love to be introduced to someone who would be booking speakers. I come very highly rated, as you guys know, because you're probably regular listeners. I was also at a Chamber of Commerce meeting where you have to get up and give your little elevator pitch, but the way that they did it this time was you can only talk about your company in 6 words. Well, one of the reasons I had to run a couple reruns is because I recently had shoulder surgery, and it's very difficult to record when you're on Norco because there's brain fog, there's all sorts of things, and then pain also doesn't help. So after having shoulder surgery, I got up and I said my 6 words. I gestured to my arm, and I'm out of a sling right now, and I said, last month, disarmed. This month, rearmed. But then I had to explain to everyone that I had a shoulder surgery and I was in a sling. Then everyone laughed. So I have been rearmed, so to speak, although I cannot still hold the firearm the way that you would normally hold it, so I gotta shoot lefty. When I was there, we do table networking, which means there's about 100 people, 10 people to a table. We all get random numbers, and then we go to whatever table number is the number that we have selected. So I was at a table, and this guy's a friend of mine. Really like him. I've been to his house. We've gotten together outside of work. We don't see eye to eye on all politics, and we discuss it, but you know something? It's what it should be. It is just a calm conversation. What is your view? What is my view? I don't see it that way. My truths are different. So great, great guy. I'm sure he's going to be voting the exact opposite of the way that I'm going to be voting, or I already voted actually. So he gets to the table and he said, whatever you do, vote, even if you're going to vote for the wrong person. And I actually agree with that. I think that everybody, it's a privilege to vote, but I also think it's a civic duty, particularly when so much is at stake for our country. And it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. If you're on the Democratic side of the aisle, hey, good for you. There's a lot at stake. If you're on the Republican side of the aisle, also, good for you. There's a lot at stake. So vote your conscience, vote your heart, vote for the person, whomever you like. Just don't vote more than once. All right, that was a Chicago joke. Vote early and often. But in any event, I would encourage everyone this Tuesday to go to the polls or even go early to the polls and cast your vote. This is one of the the last 3 elections really were significantly awesome in the fact that they were historic. And this one's no different. They were tight races. It was unbelievable. And I'm really much looking forward to election night this year because I'm going to be paying attention to what's going on. So let's talk about some things that are happening in the gun and firearm world. First of all, I run monthly classes, and my next class is going to be the first weekend of November, and you can enroll at firearmmentor.com/classes. That's the first weekend of December, if I misspoke, and that'll be my last public-facing class for the year. Now, I also do private classes. I train public safety personnel. My November weekends are pretty booked with a lot of the training, at least before the holiday season. So a lot of people take time off, they go out of town, and I am trying to accommodate as many people as possible. Also, one of the things that I offer, once you take either 2 lessons with me or you take a concealed carry class with me, one of the things that sets me apart from the other instructors is I offer a free gun cleaning lesson, class, session, whatever you want to call it. Most people don't take advantage of it. A lot of people who come through my classes already know how to clean a gun, but really for the new people involved, it's difficult because how many handguns are there out there? Hundreds. There's hundreds of handguns. Some take apart similar, some take apart differently, and each class has a variety of different firearms in it. So in class, I go over very high level how to clean a firearm. I tell some jokes about it, like what happened to me when I was a youth and I had to clean a 9-shot revolver, and my father had me do 50 strokes in each cylinder hole and the barrel. So I got really big biceps and forearms. I was kind of like the Popeye of gun cleaning, and that's a joke. I really wasn't. But in any event, I'll sit across the table from you and clean a similar firearm that you have. And that way you can mimic what I do. You can copy all of the things that I do, and you can learn how to do that. And like I said, you're already a customer. So if you come to my house and we clean a firearm, and then you go shooting in 3 months and you forget how to clean your firearm, guess what? You come back to my house and we sit down. I have a couple of requirements. Requirement number 1 is if you're going to purchase a firearm, shoot it first before you come to me to clean it. I don't want to clean a clean gun. You don't want to clean a clean gun. I want to show a before and an after so that people can actually see all of the gunk and crap that comes off of a firearm after it's been fired. The second requirement I have is, although I do have a space heater in my garage, it is not insulated. And when it is bitter cold outside, and we're encroaching upon the winter season, I ask that we reschedule because fingers don't work very well when they're frozen. So I can't have the heater going. It can be probably 10 degrees and we can still be comfortable, especially if I know you're coming. I don't do surprise visits, but if I know you're coming, I can set up the space heater well in advance of our session. And then what we can do is we can actually have the garage a decent temperature. Now, the other thing that I offer is, let's just say you take a concealed carry class with me, and someone's actually did that recently, but he's got a shotgun. It's not a concealed carry gun, and he doesn't know how to clean it. Well, that applies for any firearms that you own. Shotguns, rifles, pistols, whatever you got that's firearm related, I can show you how to take apart, disassemble, and reassemble that firearm, and in between clean and lubricate. Happy to do that. Another thing that sets me apart is I get a lot of new gun owners or gun owners who maybe have had a FOID card for a while, but right now, or they've never bought a gun. And I'll go grocery shopping. I'll go shopping with them to a gun store. And the gun store that I love is RMG Guns. Their prices are reasonable. In fact, they have a deal right now on a Glock 20 Gen 4, which comes with their standard magazines plus 3 10-round magazines and their bag. I did not write down the price, but I remember it, or I don't remember the exact number, but I remember thinking, ooh, that is a good deal. They also have, at least a couple days ago, they have 2 Shield Pluses in stock that were used. And when I say used, I mean one gentleman graduated from a small 25 automatic, or as I call it, the hooker gun, and wanted a 9mm and then didn't like the recoil because he was accustomed for 50 years of shooting a 25 automatic. 9mm is a little bit more stout. So he shot it, he didn't like it, he took it back. And then there's another customer that they have who buys and trades in and buys and trades in. And he knows he's losing money because once you buy it, it's a used gun, just like it's a used car. And he doesn't care. He's got the coin, and the other Shield Plus is from him. So these are guns that really have not been fired a lot. I inspected them. They're immaculate. They're clean, and it's fantastic. So let's pivot a little bit. Now talk about some of the things that are happening in the firearms world. TISAS, that is a company out of Turkey. They are bringing a budget-friendly 5.7 to market. So the 5.7 by 28 cartridge is basically quickly rising as a popular caliber in the United States, and the PX 5.7 is what their firearm is. Now, what is a 5.7? Well, if you've ever seen the TV show Stargate, they use P90s. That has that round. Battlestar Galactica used the 5.7 and from FN, and that uses the same round. So this new firearm from TISAS, it feeds a flush 20-round magazine. Now, I know in Illinois we can't get anything more than 15 for a handgun, giving the user more ammunition on hand than other calibers, and it includes 2 20-round magazines. And we'll be talking about the assault weapons ban and its status shortly. I don't know if it'll be in this session or the second half of the hour. The cartridge is a bottleneck cartridge. It's extremely zippy, and its velocity is advertised at 1,800 feet per second out of a 5-inch barrel. The advantage is that a flat shooting round that maintains velocity for a longer distance than other more traditional handguns, such as the 9mm or the 45. And I can see pictures of it. It looks like a typical 5.7. There's also higher capacity, and the rounds are not as cumbersome as other handgun calibers. The 5.7 cartridge is controllable, and it has a 40-grain projectile that's a similar recoil of a .22 Magnum. Now, TISAS has a plethora of affordable handguns, and I had one. I did not care for it. That doesn't mean there's nothing wrong with it. It just didn't work for me. The particular model I had was not a 5.7, but it was kind of a jam-o-matic. All right, so that's one of the things. Another thing is the Supreme Court is going to hear Mexico's $10 billion lawsuit against the gun industry. Our High Court has announced it'll hear Smith & Wesson's petition to dismiss a controversial lawsuit brought by government of Mexico against the U.S. gun industry. The case is Estados Unidos Mexicanos versus Smith & Wesson Brands Incorporated et al., and it's on the Supreme Court docket, and last Friday was granted review. The case was filed in 2021. It's a $10 billion lawsuit, and I'll make the joke, maybe it'll fund the wall. I'm kidding when I say that. And it sought to put some of the biggest names in American gun industry, including Barrett, Beretta, Century Arms, Colt, Glock, Ruger, and Smith & Wesson, on the hook for the out-of-control narco cartel violence that has plagued Mexico since 2006. In October 2022, a federal judge tossed the suit, citing Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, and it prevented the claim, but Mexico pushed the issue and appealed to the Massachusetts-based U.S. First Circuit Court, which kept the case alive and handed the issue to a lower court in Boston. Then in August, a court agreed to let most of the defendants, except Smith & Wesson, out of the lawsuit, citing that none of the activities of the Mexican government had claimed happened in the Commonwealth. Now the Supremes have agreed to hear Smith & Wesson's petition to dismiss the case. The gunmaker, which basically shifted its headquarters to Tennessee in 2023, is allied with 25 congressional members, as well as a variety of industry and pro-gun groups that have filed supporting briefs with the court. They include the Second Amendment Foundation, the Firearms Policy Coalition, the NRA, the National Association for Gun Rights, and the NSSF, or the National Shooting Sports Foundation. Today's announcement by the U.S. Supreme Court that they are granting Smith & Wesson's petition to hear Mexico's frivolous $10 billion lawsuit against lawful American firearm manufacturers is welcomed news to the entire firearms industry, said Lawrence G. Keene, NSSF Senior Vice President and General Counsel, on Friday. He further said Mexico's lawsuit seeks to blame lawful American businesses for violence in Mexico perpetuated by Mexican narco-terrorist drug cartels and impacting innocent Mexican lives. It is not the fault of the American firearms business that follow strict laws and regulations to lawfully manufacture and sell legal products. The case represents exactly why Congress passed and George W. Bush enacted the Bipartisan Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, or the PLCAA. The case was rightly dismissed by a federal judge before the First Circuit Court of Appeals' erroneous ruling early this year that reversed the district court's order and reinstated the case. Lawful American manufacturers follow American laws to make and sell lawful and constitutionally protected products. The Mexican government should instead focus on bringing Mexican criminals to justice in Mexican courtrooms, said Keene. So that's one lawsuit that's happening. The other one is the Illinois challenge to the PICA Act, Protect Illinois Communities Act, or as I call it, the PU Act, because it stinks. The PICA Act bans any rifle magazines greater than 10 rounds and any pistol magazines greater than 15 rounds, as well as banning almost every, but not all, semi-automatic magazine-fed rifles. So this case is being heard, or it was heard. Judge McGlynn has all of the paperwork. They were due to him the third week of October, and he is going to be issuing a judgment shortly. Now, this judgment is very interesting. When he ruled about Freedom Week in 2023, I believe, it gave a week for people to go out and purchase items that were banned. Can you do it this time? Well, it's expected or it's speculated, so don't take this as fact. I happen to agree with the opinion that the ruling will be issued the day before Thanksgiving, giving Thanksgiving weekend for people to go out and buy things. However, It is also speculated that the following Monday will result in that being stayed by the appellate court. So how does one purchase a semi-automatic banned item, or what's banned currently, during that time period? Things are closed on Thanksgiving. You go in Friday morning. You can't pick it up till Monday morning because it's a 72-hour wait. And by then, the appellate court may rule not in favor of the Second Amendment. There are ways to do this. So if you are interested in doing that, I can certainly walk you through it. I don't make that information public because I don't want the anti-gunners to know the tactics. And that is to protect the people who support the Second Amendment. But if you're interested in finding out how can I actually get an AR-15, AK-47, or all that other thing, if that opening occurs, feel free to send me a message at Marcus Melnick, MarcusMelnick.com, which is my electronic business card. It allows you to save my contact information right to your phone, and I would love to hear from you. If you're interested, I can always send referrals to people who are purchasing firearms.
I want my listeners to know that this is my dream, teaching people about safety. If it weren't for you, if it weren't for my listeners, I couldn't live my dream. So on behalf of my family and myself, I want to thank each and every one of you for allowing me to live my dream. And I also want to continue to live my dream, and I'm excited to continue to spread the word of safety. Recently, I began a new service as a conference keynote speaker. So, if anyone would like for me to speak at future events, or if anyone knows of an introduction or would like to discuss how we can work with one another, I'd love to do just that. The keynote speaking website is www.stress2logic.com. That is STRESS2logic.com. If you're aware of any conference speaking engagements where you'd like to have me speak, I'd love an introduction. You can always share my electronic business card, which is Marcus Melnick, MarcusMelnick.com. Now, back to the show.
So I'd like to discuss something that Vice President Harris said. And when it comes to most mainstream media journalists, you can't blame them for not knowing about firearms. Look, I get it. They aren't, for the most part, gun people. In 2019, Vice President Harris indicated that she owned a firearm. And recently on 60 Minutes, the CBS News program, Bill Whitaker demonstrated that the latest example is kind of frustrating. He asked Vice President Harris what type of firearm she owned. And it was quickly forgotten that she revealed she was a gun owner in 2019. But recently it resurfaced after it was repeated during the ABC News presidential debate, and then told Oprah Winfrey that she'd shoot an intruder if one were ever to break into her house. Now that's kind of ridiculous. At least in Illinois, you have to be in danger. If she did that in Illinois, she would be a felon, which is very interesting. She'd shoot an intruder. Well, let me tell everyone a story about how I was an intruder. Several years ago, I had an elderly relative who lived near me who said, "Hey, Marcus, I don't drive at night. Can you pick me up for Thanksgiving?" Yeah, of course. Hey, I'm a good person. I'm a mensch. So I said, "Hey, I haven't been to your house in about a year. I know exactly where you live. But can you give me the house number so that I can just make sure that I'm picking you up in the right place?" So she gave me the house number and told me, "My garage door will be open. Please just come on in and get me." Okay, cool. So it's Thanksgiving. My kids are young. They stay in the car. I pull up on the street. Now it's dark because it's Thanksgiving and it's 5 o'clock. And, with daylight savings time, the sun goes down at about 2. By the way, this is daylight savings time, so I hope you've set your clocks and aren't missing the show. But if you are, it's always available on my YouTube channel at Firearm Mentor. But in any event, I pull up to the house, correct house number, garage doors open. Okay, cool. And so it's an attached garage. So I go in through the garage and I want to be polite and respectful. So I knock on the door. Knock on the door, nothing happens. I knock on the door harder, nothing happens. Well, maybe she's in the restroom. Maybe it's a hearing issue. I can hear activity on the other side of the door. So I pound on the door and it was loud. Nothing, no response. And I'm sitting there and I'm waiting. Well, she said, come on in and get me. So I opened the door and walked into the house. And you can tell from my accent, I'm probably not from India, which I'm not. But standing in front of me was an Indian woman. How do I know she was Indian? She was wearing a sari. That is an Indian garb. And she took one look at me. Her hands went to the sides of her cheeks like Macaulay Culkin. And she said, oh my goodness. And she scared the living daylights out of me. And I scared the living daylights out of her. I was in the wrong house. So immediately, and again, I want to be polite, I apologized. I backed out. I'm like, I am so sorry. I'm picking up a family member for Thanksgiving. Please, please forgive me. And then I exited. And on the way out, I said, by the way, your garage door is open. How did that happen? Well, I was on the wrong block. The next block was the block that I was supposed to be on. And because it was dark and I wasn't paying attention and I didn't see the street signs, well, that's what happened. And then, of course, I get to Thanksgiving and everyone hears about it, and I'm Marcus the burglar. I'm not Marcus the burglar, but that's how they teased me. It was a lot of fun. So just because somebody is in your house, and this is part of the concealed carry class, does not give you the right to shoot them. I was an intruder. Now, I didn't have any nefarious motivations or anything like that, and I apologize, and I was in the wrong place. And the fact is, I'm so glad I wasn't shot. But in Illinois, you have to be in danger or immediate threat of death, which we all know what it is, or great bodily harm. And my non-lawyer interpretation of great bodily harm is anything that requires medical attention in an emergency room or with paramedics that is above and beyond traditional first aid. So a bruise would not be great bodily harm. But if someone punches me in my shoulder, guess who's having another surgery? That is great bodily harm because I would need to go seek medical attention. We will be back shortly where we'll be continuing the conversation about Vice President Harris's firearm. So stay tuned. The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters.